everyone, and welcome to another video. Dr. Gale here, and I'm glad you guys could join us today on the home front side, as we're doing it from the home office today instead of the regular office. But today what we want to talk about is the use of layers in design. So just like anything else that you might have heard layers from, maybe your parents told you to layer your clothing in case it got warmer, you could take some off, or if you have layers on a cake or something like that. What we're talking about with layers are something that are stackable. They're able to be put on top of each other. Sometimes they can be separated out, and if you get a cake and you get the icing, that's a little harder to separate out, but it's defined areas that stack on top of each other. So what we're hoping you'll get out of this presentation today is we'll learn a little bit about the purpose and the functions of layers. We're going to talk a little bit about the benefits of using layers in design, and we're going to talk a little bit about the programs that may have layers associated with them. And while we do this, what we're going to do is go through some examples using colored paper, because it's easier to do and easier to show you guys how this function would work. So when we're talking about layers, the first thing we're talking about is an individual sheet of paper. That's the easiest way to think about it. Now, you may have only one layer or one sheet of paper in a project. So you may color all over this, draw all over this, manipulate this however you want, and that's it. But you can also have multiple layers in a project where you would have a second layer on top of the first one, and you would have a third layer on top of the fourth one. And that allows you to do manipulations that you wouldn't be able to ordinarily do without messing up the entire thing of what you're already working on. Okay, so that's the thing to think about. It's three separate pieces of paper, but they're all stacked on top of each other. They are all a different layer. Okay, so again, you can have one in a project, you can have multiple in a project. Sometimes a layer is transparent, so if you like take off some edges or something, you'd be able to see things underneath, and we'll demonstrate that here in a second. But overall, this is your general concept of layers. All right, so let's take a second and take a look at actually how we might manipulate some of these things and what the differences are between true layers, like the papers, and just stacking things on top of each other inside of a program that doesn't have layers. All right, so let's go ahead and do a quick demonstration and show you guys how layers work. So remember, what we're talking about is each page is going to be an individual layer. So we've got 1, 2, 3 layers. Now we can do different things with these. These will initially be stacked on top of each other, so you would only see the top layer. Now we can hide the top layer and take it away completely, leaving just 2 layers left. Or we can reorder the layers so that the green layer is layer 3 on the bottom. But the whole point is they stack on top of each other. You won't be able to see what's underneath them unless you do some stuff to manipulate out the layer. So some of the things you can do to manipulate out the layer is we could, say, cut off a piece of the layer. So if we cut off a corner of the layer, when we're showing it, notice that layer 2 starts showing through from layer 1. So we can cut circles, we can cut angles, we can cut whatever out of here that we want, and then layer will still show underneath, okay? So if we go back and we show here though, notice black still doesn't show. It's layer 3 now, it's on the bottom. But if I come up and I cut off part of layer 2, I still cannot see the black layer because layer 2 is now the green layer. If I flip it though, and I put layer 2 as the black layer, depending on where our cut was on layer 1, we still can't see it. So maybe we have to go with a little bit of a deeper cut on layer 1. And then there, you have layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, because we're cutting pieces off. So again, it stacks on top of each other. This layer will be purple, except for it will view right here as transparent so that we see through it to the next layer. And again, we can even do stuff like, if we fold it in half, cut out some kind of shape here in the middle. Not going to be a perfect shape, but it'll be good enough for our purposes. When we unfold it and stick it back like it's a layer, notice right in the middle of the page, you can see through to the layer because again, this is transparent. We just cut that piece out. So what this allows you to do is you can draw the individual elements on layers, and then you can end up using the layers to stack for effect. So we got some cool colors here. We got some Marvel colors. Let's go ahead and do this. We're going to do an individual layer here. Purple is obviously Hulk's pants. So we're going to color out a pair of Hulk pants, okay, something like that. So it's on the individual layer. If I throw my layer 3 up on top, the Hulk pants are covered, you can't see them. Okay, so I've got to put my layer 1 back on top, and there's the Hulk pants. So on layer 2, the black layer, we're going to go ahead and draw a little bit of Hulk hair. Now I don't know if the Hulk thing's going to line up. We'll have to worry about that in a little bit, but now we have a little bit of Hulk hair drawn. And then on layer 3, we will do a Hulk body. So we have a Hulk head, a Hulk body, probably a Hulk foot, which, man, he's got little feet for being Hulk, but that's all right. And then big Hulk arms. All right, so that'll be good enough. All right, so when we start doing an effect, we're gonna put that one on the bottom, and we're gonna snip these pieces out. So on layer 3, we're gonna cut everything out and make it transparent, except for the shorts we just did. And I'm gonna do a very rudimentary cut for time's sake, but enough that you can tell that it's a pair of pants. So I would end up deleting out everything other than the pants. So they'd be sitting there like that. So now I've got layer 2, layer 3 is just the pants, or layer 1 is just the pants, layer 3 is still our Hulk. All right, but that's not gonna work because we still can't see the Hulk. We're losing the effect when we can't stack these things on top of each other while using transparency. So then let me go ahead and cut out the Hulk hair real quick. And again, the idea will be we will delete everything except for the Hulk hair and the Hulk pants. So now I have layer 1, layer 2 is the hair, layer 3 is our Hulk. And see, now that we have these stackable layers on each other, they end up making an effect that looks like we have all of our Hulk in the same spot. But if the pants don't match up, we can just move layer 1 around to where they go. If we even needed to cover it up for some reason, he has pants on his head, layer 1 is on top of layer 2, so it would cover up the hair. But for right now, we can move the hair around so that it makes more sense. Maybe he's looking up or something instead. Now maybe he's just looking square face again. But that's how we start manipulating things that are on layers so that we can get the effects that we want. It also allows us to make easy edits on multiple items at once. So let's take, for example, you want to put a black border around something that you're a picture or something, and you're going to do a PowerPoint like, so you need like 10 of those pictures. If you go into some of the photo editors and you end up using your layers, you can go ahead and cut out some kind of circular shape for your border. So we're going to say let's have circles throughout our PowerPoint presentation. That's going to be our common looking theme. And then I'm going to cut the inside of the circle out, so all that we have is a layer that is an outer circle as a border. Now this one's going to be super thick because we're using construction paper and pencils and scissors, but there is our circle that is going to be the border. So like in this case, if we wanted Hulk, we'd kind of come in here, we'd put the border around Hulk, and then we would cut all of this green out so that it's transparent. That way layer 1's border, layer 2's the hair, layer 3, layer 4 is green. Hulk, but we have Hulk in a circle. So let's take that another second. Say I need to do multiple pictures really fast. We're going to do some Lego instructions. So if I want to show the instruction manual, I can throw this down and then boom. Everything outside of here would be cut, but I would have, say, like Avengers right there inside of my circle. All right, and then we want to do the first page of instructions. Boom, put it in the circle. Now you have the circle, save it. Then you want to do the next set of instructions. Boom, put it in the circle and save it. You want to go to another project and make it look the same? All you got to do is pull in the next instruction manual. Now we're doing Thanos' glove. Boom, put the circle around it. Go to the first page, get your instructions. Boom, put the circle around it. So again, I can do multiple images and multiple edits on these by just having my layer, that's the circle, number 1, and then dumping an image underneath the layer, save it. Dump an image under the layer, save it. And all of a sudden I've got 15 images that all look the same and can all go in my project at one time, and they look great. All right, so simple edits are really, really good to do when you are using layers. The last thing we can do is we can show and hide content really fast. So for example, we've got our Hulk in here and something's happening in our lesson. We don't want him showing up anymore. I'm gonna go ahead and pull this one out. We don't want him showing up anymore. All we have to do is say, okay, so when it's time for him to not show up, boom, let's show a layer. All right, time for him to come back, boom, hide the layer. Time for him to go, boom, bring the layer back. Time for him to come back again, boom, hide the layer. So you can show and hide full layers without any problem. And the last thing you can do is if everything is on an individual layer, so let's say we made all of this Hulk right here look like it's on a layer, we flatten it. So we go into the software and we say layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, and layer 4. We're going to squish it down. So now it is literally just one giant layer. As we start moving that around, it moves the entire layer. So all those pieces move with each other. So remember at the beginning we said we can move individual layers to make things work. Once we have it like we like it and it works, we flatten that down, and then we can move that whole Hulk thing onto some other different type of layer here. So he's got a black background, green background, and now another black background. And that's a lot of B's at once, so I'm mixing all those letters up. But hopefully you see, layers really allow you to manipulate things, to make images that you wouldn't be able. You want to Photoshop yourself onto, you know, another planet or up on a mountain or in the beach or something like that. You're going to have to find an image of the beach, which would be like this green background. Then you're going to have to cut an image out of yourself, and then you put the two layers on top of each other. That's how it makes it look like you are on the beach or you are on the mountain or whatever. All right. So now that we've looked at layers and how they work, the functions behind them, what are some of the programs that we would mess around with that actually use layers within them? Well, any of your graphic editors will more than likely have some kind of layers, at least if it's a graphic editor worth using. So your Adobe Photoshops, things like GIMP, things like that on the internet that you'd be able to get, all of those type of things will have different layers. Also, if you have printable materials, not just photo editors, like Adobe InDesign, those will all use layers in the traditional sense that layers are. Any video editing programs you use will more than likely also have layers. Now they may be called different things like tracks or something like that, but essentially it still is a layer. So if you're using Camtasia Studio, or if you're using Adobe Premiere or Adobe Director, essentially they all have layers. Again, different name, same function, same purpose on them though. Lastly, you will have your interactive lesson developers. So things like Articulate Storyline, Adobe Captivate, a lot of those will have layers, at least if it's one of the ones that are more expensive, which give you a lot more creative power, a lot more functionality. Now, if you're using some of the cheaper ones like a SoftChalk or something, that one's not going to have layers built into it. But the more advanced tools will usually have layers because, again, it just allows you quicker manipulation of areas, more fine-tuned manipulation of areas, and it allows you to do really what your heart's content is and not be limited by some of the abilities of the actual software itself. So those programs often use layers. Now the one we usually get questions about is what about PowerPoint, because I can stack things on top of each other in PowerPoint. And PowerPoint is not actually a program that uses layers. I mean, conceptually it may be a layer, but the way that we normally define and use layers in design, PowerPoint just doesn't do it. The main reason you can tell this is because if you click and drag and select over an image or something or an item or text, something that you have on there, and there's other things that are stacked beneath it, it will select all of those at once, and when you start moving them, you're not able to actually move them individually. You would have to go through and try and figure out which one it is and declick that, deselect it out, stuff like that. So they're all moving together. It's not like placing the things on individual layers where I can grab the layer on the side and then everything on that layer moves while everything's staying static. So they're only self-containing. Even though they're stacking on top of each other, you can't get the editing and the manipulation on it like you can other programs. That's why we don't really call that one true layers. It's just stacking on top of things in an individual layer. So conceptually it might be there, but it's not truly the definition. So PowerPoint is not what we normally would consider a program that allows layering. But those are your normal layering programs. You got your photo editors, your print editors, your video editors, and some of those interactive story developers. All of those would have layers in them too. So hopefully that got a little bit more across to you, a little bit clearer as to what layers are, how we use them, the benefits of them. Hopefully all that stuff made sense to you guys. And if you guys have any other questions on it, please feel free to reach out to us. If you have questions or thoughts on anything, we're always trying to produce new videos out so that you guys have new tools, new techniques you can use out there. So also be sure to hit that subscribe button if it was worth anything, because we're going to try and put new videos out to get these tools in your hands, and that'll just notify you a lot faster that those videos are available. Again, if you have any questions, any other ideas related to design, related to instructional technology, any of that, feel free to send them in to us. We'll try to make a video and address those with you. Basically, what we're trying to do is make sure that you've got the tools and techniques to make it the strongest experience possible for your students so that they just enjoy this world that you're creating and that get the education needs out of it that they're trying to shoot for. So again, you got anything, just let us know. But otherwise, we're going to go ahead and cut out on this video. If you guys have anything, let us know. Otherwise, thanks for taking the time to join us today, and we look forward to seeing you the next time. All right, have a good one.